Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, in my research recently, and I've just actually uploaded a lecture on Stephen Hawking and his contact with Shirley MacLaine, where he admits that he believes he was a reincarnation of Isaac Newton because they had similar birthdays, if not the exact same birthdays, not same times, but they were born on the same day or something such as that. So there were some connections there, and he feels that and had admitted to it, which is interesting. Very interesting. And, of course, who would you talk to but Shirley MacLaine? But Shirley MacLaine I'd like to make a few statements on, which is interesting. I'm not a big fan of hers. To be honest, I have not read any of her books. I have them. I want to read her books, but I do have a problem with New Age thinking. It gets too much homogenized into the trashy junk you generally get from yogis and others, which preach kind of a vacuous belief system, which always comes back to you're nothing, nothing is real, we're a speck of dirt in the universe of nowhere. I don't like that reality. They also seem to be horny little buggers and very greedy. So I don't have much use, and I'm not saying all of them, but we're talking in generalities here. I really don't like Eastern philosophy at all, and it doesn't make really much sense to me. And they are very money-based when you really get down to it. So she gets into a lot of that stuff, the dummy llama and all these people, which I really have little or no respect for. She claims a lot of things, but she's also one of these New Agers who claim you bring everything on yourself. If you get in a car accident or you're raped, you did that so you'd learn a lesson. And you did that to yourself. Well, I don't believe that. I think people have lessons. I think life is hard enough. I don't know if you need anything traumatizing. Trauma generally doesn't create change. Trauma generally creates distortions. It's like taking too many drugs or drinking too much. Alcohol is a great disinhibitor. Too much of it makes you a stooge. So the whole idea, it's a great tool if used correctly. So the whole idea is that do you need to learn from that kind of pain? And a lot of people who are bad people don't seem to learn from anything. So I guess, and nothing seems to happen to them. But a lot of people have very kind of tragic lives you don't know about. So I don't know what all that means, but I don't think you necessarily cause that to be brought on your... I do think you may put that into situations like choosing where you reincarnate from. Is this real? Did you really choose to do that because you want to learn something? Well, I think there's a shred of truth to it, but I think there's a very complicated world out there, and I think there's an awful lot of influences outside of you. You don't have any free will. Your brain is full of the feces of training you got from parents, teachers, and society. You don't know anything. You can't break away from that. You had a trauma, and here we go about traumas in life, and that then rules the rest of your life. Well, I can't deal with that. I had a trauma. So I've heard this particularly with many people that have problems in their relationships with their wives in particular, and the trauma that their wives went through, which generally tends to be a little bit minor but sexually related, of course, they visited onto you. So they bring their trash to you. So they have a problem, and you pay the price for it instead of them paying the price to the people that whoever did that. So the whole idea, that didn't help them. They're not learning from that. They're being crippled by it. And I think that's very important to state here because a lot of people state this, particularly the New Agers with their cult of love and progression, is bogus and deeply flawed. And I think that Shirley MacLaine is just one of those. She certainly is an odd character. And I guess you would be if you're going to go through, and I always say this even about myself, if life was perfect, I probably wouldn't be doing anything I'm doing today. I'm doing things today because my family life and my mentally ill parents and scumbucket other family were all goofballs. And by recognizing this, I took different paths, and then your path is constantly changing. And a lot of this had absolutely nothing to do with my personal choice. I was forced into things. didn't have money to stay in college, couldn't go with it, had no place, no family unit whatsoever, and so forth. So you go on and on. So a lot of things, and you can say, well, you put yourself there. Well, I don't believe I did that, and I think things happen in many ways, and some of them you may be pushed into indirectly. I'm not sure it has anything to do with you doing things. I think it has a lot to do with what is on the outside that people are pushing. So you're affected by a whole bunch of things that other people are doing, and you're a clone to the thinking of your society structure you're in. So you grew up in a religion, you believe that. You have your political opinions probably are the same ones your parents have, at least to a certain age. Certainly was with me. And then, of course, I learned past that. And I think completely different than I did as a teenager and young adult. So, I mean, that's a big difference. So you get with Shirley MacLaine, and I've seen her in L.A. a few times in a couple of restaurants, being the obnoxious, loud broad that she is. I mean, she certainly is that kind of a girl, and which is kind of interesting as a girl as well, that she's not a wallflower and has nothing to say like so many women tend to do. So that is not her. She is going to be out there. And to a certain extent, I like that. I like someone who is out there and not so submissive as so many, I should say, subtly submissive as women pretend to be. But the point is that her belief systems, and of course, she was big into reincarnation and one of the first people to get out there and talk about that. She's in her late 80s now, and she's doing fairly well. And she's went down all these spiritual paths. There's certainly nothing wrong with anything she's ever said or her spiritual paths than any other people. I mean, look at the majority of fantasy comic book realities that the world populations live under. The major religions, the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims. What a bunch of comic book stupid belief systems they are. And we go into all the Eastern stuff as well, which is just another comic book. So the fact of anything that she states certainly isn't any stranger or worse than these belief systems. If anything, they're better. And of course, she at least was seeking something instead of going to the corner church and following along with the rest of the ignorant sheep and creating nothing. We've had thousands of years of these religions, and they've done nothing. So, positive, I should say. Religion that caused all the wars today, all the wars that we're having right now are connected directly to religious belief systems. So this is how we go again. I mean, just endless. Who are the most violent people? Religious people. And the more fervent they are, the more radical belief systems they have, like the Muslims, the more they're fighting and killing all over the place. So the whole idea is that these types of things. So I don't want to go. I haven't read her books, as I've stated. I don't really know. But as I said, I don't like that new agey stuff. You know, standing on Malibu Beach screaming, "I am God." And I don't think we are God. And I think that's an immature and childish, egotistical statement. So I have problems with all that stuff. She claims to have extraterrestrial contact and other things, but I don't know if she's really achieved anything. And I'm not sure if I don't know of any Shirley MacLaine foundations. Maybe she gives money to certain groups. She hasn't started anything. She hasn't supported anything that I know of. So I always have problems with these things. So it's difficult when you start looking at people. Then there's other issues that do come up. So, so I don't find anything. I mean, there's been in the past that she's put money into things, but where is it? She's made a lot of money. She's very rich. She has all these books. What is she doing for anything other than writing these books? And I guess talking, which I guess she feels is enough. She is connected with the Ramtha organization with Jay-Z Knight for a while. I don't know if that's still going. Which, like all these movements, are potentially good and bad. I don't know. I found some things that Ramtha talks about excellent. Other things becomes another money-making reality. But what isn't? That's the reality we're living in. And we have to be very careful of that in general. She's had one child, and Sashi, which there has been some great dispute of. So where her daughter claims that she was virtually abandoned. I think the egotistical view of her mother kind of confirms that. We just don't know. I mean, all these things are difficult. Everybody has axes to grind, but people write tell-all books like this usually for the money, and we'll get into that in a minute. Getting back to her supporting, apparently she's a big animal supporter. Animal shelters, etc. She also supports the Barbara Davis Center for Childhood Diabetes, Adopt a Classroom, as well as Motion Picture and Television Fund Foundation, giving to her own people so they have places of medical care and places to live. Not very metaphysical, Shirley. Where is the other supports? Where is some sort of center setting up things? Have a problem with this, and that's the kind of situation. Now, you don't know these people, you don't know what they're doing actually, but we do need to. Instead of making outrageous statements to get press, maybe you should go out there and do something that is assisting people. And why aren't you working with some alternative? She's supporting the, what is she doing at the Diabetic Center? Barbara Davis, giving money to the medical, military, industrial complex? Is that what you consider that? Barbara Davis, I'm not sure. Wasn't that Ronald Reagan's wife? I'm not sure if that's a motion picture person. Supporting the Motion Picture Association? Well, I mean, that was your career. That's what made you. I can certainly see you giving money there. I'm not sure what adopt a classroom means, but I have problems with all these things. So... And I don't know how much money she's giving to the great need for animal control places and so forth. So these people dedicate their lives to that stuff. So, and all that go with that. So we have these things we have to look at to the point of what's going on. I have this problem with everybody. There's a lot of new agey type people that spout their mouth off living in Malibu and other places, but what are they really doing and who are they supporting? I don't see any of that stuff. And when people come out strongly in favor of natural medicine, like a few celebrities have, they're jumped on, and I don't see anybody else coming out helping them and defending them. So it's pretty sad. So I don't know the whole picture, and I'm not going to spend my life figuring this out and writing about it, and nobody cares, as is usual with most of this stuff. But that's the other problem. So the whole idea is she makes a lot of statements, and of course I don't know if we should in some way think that she should have a normal white picket fence look at relationships. Basically not. She basically is a pretty promiscuous person. And I'm not sure I don't know, is that negative? I'm not sure it is negative. It means that she was a nice person to know who dealt with a very sexual world properly. She was married to and claims to have lived in Japan. And this is another problem I have with so many people. She was married to Steve Parker, who is noted as a film producer and spent most of his time apparently living in Japan. And that's who she had her one child with, Sashi Parker. Steve Parker's who she married. I can't find much information on him of what business. They say businessman, then it lists him as film producer. I'm not sure. And apparently she claims she had lived in Japan for 15 years and didn't seem to really get the perception of the Japanese correctly, as it seems like most people don't around the world. They're just getting the veneer. And of course she wants to live in happydom, so she doesn't want to look at the fact of the brutal maniac murderers that the Japanese race is. She claims they come from outer space and they're aliens. Well, that's why we got to be careful with alien contact. Because for thousands of years, the Japanese have been butchering and murdering everybody in Asia right up to World War II and to a large extent even today. So the point is that I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about sushi. So the whole idea is that all that comes with this reality. I have a real problem with her intellectual capacities. So to think that she lives in rich movie star land and that part of Japan represented, and that the Japanese people, like the French or German or English people, tell you their real realities of how they think and act, living in rich little movie star land, that you didn't spend that much. I don't know what you mean by spending 15 years there, because you didn't live in Japan consistently. I don't know, or at least it doesn't seem to be. She had an open relationship with him. She traveled around and being the free spirit and taking care of the carnal fun that's out there, she was known to be a fun girl. So the whole idea is that's certainly part of it. And I'm going to read her daughter's book, which she published about 10 years ago, Sashi Parker, where she talked about the fact that, and I tend to believe her, and I tend to believe her daughter in terms of what's situation. So the point is her perceptions are very skewed, and she likes to pull these New Age things, is that, he's not your real father, it's actually a alien who impregnated her. So, with, of course, I'm not sure what all that means. Is it possible? I'm open to everything. I don't really have a problem with any of these types of things, but the bottom line is that we have to understand that these kind of things stated to children, which seem not to be prepared for it, are pretty bad. And the fact that the daughter would do this means that she didn't really have a close relationship. She traveled around. She did her egotistical thing. What did she do with her daughter? How did she train her? How did he talk to her? What was all the story? Well, she wrote this fairly scathing book, which, as I said, I'm going to read and going to give you a review on it. That certainly didn't paint mommy in a good view. And most likely she did it for money as well, because there is an overtone here that Richie Shirley, who doesn't ever seem to be seen with her daughter and doesn't seem to have her involved in any activities, didn't support her properly. And of course, everybody's a lovey-dovey New Ager until it comes to the buckaroos. But things get even worse. Now, I'm not sure how I tend to think the story from her child is correct. And I think that Shirley MacLaine, in my opinion, is pretty much an egotistical, self-centered nightmare. And she just clinged on to beliefs that fulfilled her fantasy, where it started out with her fantasy of being in Hollywood and dancing and being the friendly showgirl to everyone. And continued into this, which she was able to get away with. Maybe this was something, I'm not sure how many books you're going to be able to publish on me dancing eyes, me screwy celebrities. So going into this entire relatively big and popular New Age type movement at that time and connecting with others really helped her career. It also helped her sell millions of dollars worth of books. So, these are things that we have to look at seriously. As I said, I don't really have a good taste in my mouth with MacLaine in general. I also find it interesting that in all the interviews that I've listened to Shirley, that I never hear her speak of her child and how we did this together. I showed her this. We had these experiences. It's all about me, myself, and I, and how I was such the flutterbug around Hollywood and how I had these experiences and all the things that go with it. And of course, her aggressive, very blunt attitude is refreshing to a certain degree, but you can do that when you're wealthy. And after all, everybody knows who she is, the New Age guru that she is, so she can get away with it, and get away with it because she's a woman. So the fact that these kind of things are done, well, you go to see Shirley MacLaine, you know what you're going to get, and it's not going to be just, I danced with Dean. But the story of her one and only child, which I think says a lot as well. I mean, at that particular time, she had a child strictly because I guess that's what you did, particularly in the 1950s. Her daughter is 64 now. the whole idea is that there wasn't seen to be much of a family life, and there was very strange relationships with her husband, who she had an open relationship to the point that, again, I don't know what, I'm not going to piece it all together. I've done some basic research. They divorced because she claimed that he was taking her money to pay for his mistress. And they had an open marriage. He had a mistress. He lived in Japan. I'm not sure what the hell he did. Apparently, producer, businessman. Who knows what's really going on there? And of course, while it was good for him, I guess, to be married to her and vice versa, it confirmed the fact of her being common, which the public likes. Maybe it was even covering up some maybe other sexual issues. We don't know. A lot of people get married in Hollywood, name only, and it doesn't take much to have a baby. I mean, you don't have to be that turned on by anybody. So the whole idea is, who knows what the undercurrents there are, since she's such an open person, and that usually means that there may be some sexual or bisexual issues involved there. I don't know, and I'm not even alleging that. I'm just bringing up the question, and I don't want these things to be we don't know. And I'm not going to spend all this time, but it's very odd. You have a relationship, you have a daughter, you don't really apparently care about it. They sends her to where he was living in Japan. She claims she said that. And I think these are gross statements, that she lived in Japan for 50 years. Didn't learn anything about Japan. And made some stupid statements about them, thinking because they're not sure where they came from. Well, you got to think of the Japanese mentality. So, but of course, you don't get that. And of course, as I said, living in the Beverly Hills or wherever she was living of Japan is not a valuable way to learn what Japani is all about. But her daughter comes out with some pretty shocking stuff in her book, which as I mentioned, I will read and get back to you on. And of course, she states completely different. But it seems to me that some of this can be proven, or even a lot of it. So her daughter, at the age of 2, Parker was sent to Japan to live with her father and his mistress. At 2? Well, this is pretty confusing, because where's mommy? And very traumatizing as well. But I guess she brought that on herself because she wants to learn how rotten people are. During the summer and at holidays, she visited her mother, again stating the fact that she wasn't living there. So I don't know where that 15 years she claimed she was in Japan. She was there on weekends. They posed together on the cover of the February 9th, 1959 issue of Life. Parker said her parents were negligent. Her father was verbally abusive, calling her the idiot and forbidding her to read. How weird is that? Parker was frequently left home alone while her father went out. And here's again, obviously not at 2, but certainly at a young age. As a teen, she was sent to boarding school in Europe, very typical of what the rich do. Parker recalled one Christmas, neither of her parents showed up to pick her up from boarding school when she was 14. Very traumatic age. And stranding her in Europe for weeks. Sitting there. Everybody else. Can you imagine the kind of scars that has? And how horrible you feel from something like that. Parker intended to go to college, but claimed she was cut off financially from her parents at 17. So this is pretty horrible for 2 people that apparently are pretty rich. And of course, Daddy had money, and so did Mommy have money to pay the mistress of Daddy. Apparently, from this, Parker, her daughter, Sashi Parker, taught skiing in New Zealand, worked as a waitress in Hawaii, spent 5 years working as a flight attendant for Qantas Airlines, and worked for a brief period of time as an au pair in Paris. In 1981, she returned to Los Angeles and decided to become an actress. And she claims that her mother did absolutely nothing to help her, and even did sabotaged her career so she wouldn't be successful. Of course, it was nice to be able to bounce off of that, and I guess it opened up a lot of doors. She did get different parts, and of course you would never know because she'd be listed as Parker and not as MacLaine in The Next Generation, Alien Nation, Peggy Sue Got Married, Bad Influence. Parker starred in the 2009 Japanese film Witch of the West is Dead, which showed at the Palm Springs International Film Festival. I'm not where that Japanese connection comes in, but again, we have some weird and semi-contradictory. If there's no help there, why is she getting Japanese parts? Don't quite understand that. On February 7th, 2013, she published her book. Parker opened up about her unconventional childhood and her strange relationship with her mother. Parker was a lonely child, and she struggles with abandonment and loneliness issues, obviously so. Parker said writing the book was therapeutic, and though she struggled with guilt, she decided to stop protecting her mother. She sent her mother a copy of the book with a note saying, "I love you." MacLaine called the book virtually all fiction and added, "I'm sorry to see such a dishonest, opportunistic effort from my daughter for whom I only ever wanted the best except for giving her money." I can assume that we could trace her jobs here. It doesn't sound like something you'd do for fun, but on the other hand, teaching skiing, worked as a waitress in Hawaii. It is Hawaii. Spent flight attendants for Qantas. Well, that's kind of a fun job. I don't know about being an au pair in Paris. Maybe it's because you wanted to stay in Paris. But if you had money, you could kind of do all these things. You have money, you don't work as a waitress in Hawaii. You go to Hawaii. So you have to wonder about these things. And apparently she was unable to get a penny from her parents, either of them, to assist her in what is considered basic things you should do for your children. But of course, a lot of people don't get that. Certainly, my father would pay for it. None of my wouldn't pay for anything. So got nothing from him. So the whole idea is that, and he could afford it. So the whole idea is that it's the same old story with these different things. So what exactly do you say about those things? So I find it hard to believe that and it's Sashiko. So she has a Japanese first name, or what she uses, her birth name is Stephanie Sakio Parker. So, and you have to wonder why this guy married, well, again, there's got to be something going on here. Marrying an actress, but having a Japanese really mistress or whatever it is, and obviously, I don't know. I don't think he has any other children, but certainly is a, it just shows you the kind of thing. So you look at people like this and you expect them to have a better outlook, to treat people a little better, to take care of their family, to worry about them. It certainly doesn't seem like that in this. Now, if her daughter did this strictly for money, well, that says a lot to me. It says a lot to me that she didn't have any money. She did do fairly well, though, in her marrying. Let's talk about that as well. So, let's see what kind. It was February of 2013 when she published her book. Okay? Now, she married investment banker Frank Murray, and she was married to him from 1993 to 2011. Okay? So she certainly had money at that particular. They lived for a time in Houston while Murray was the chairman and CEO of Good Holdings and Amana Appliances. And they had 2 children together as well. So she was getting, so he's a fairly big business executive, and she had 2 children with him, meaning that she had a fairly good income. I'm assuming him being a big shot executive. As of the time of 20, but this is 2 years after her divorce. Maybe there was some money problems. Did she need money? Is that why she published this book? But it seems to me that she wouldn't have been at that particular time. Seems to me that if this was a big attack to just make money when she needed it, it would have been done prior to 2013. when she was doing other things. And she did get into Hollywood. She did do parts. She did bump up against people. So all of this to a degree, but obviously was never able to do much with these small films and stuff that she actually made. But during her marriage, she was apparently active, in doing some sort of Hollywood type work. At least some of it. It's hard to put it all together, to figure out what this was about. Why would you possibly do that? She seems relatively secure. Now, you could say she came out with this book particularly because now she's out of a marriage. She's got 2 kids to take care of. She's living on child support, which I'm assuming is quite nice for a business executive. And I'm assuming the children were well taken care of. So this isn't a guy that made $50,000 a year. This is a guy who made lots of money. So the whole idea that it's a complete. I think it's reaching not to think that what she stated is true, and probably could be very well proven. Was she sent to Europe all that time? What was old Shirley doing? Bopping around with the movie stars, thinking about reincarnation while her kid was sitting in Europe at a private school all by herself, with very little communication. And I wouldn't doubt at all her statement that she was left there and nobody picked her up one year. And how traumatizing is that? But Shirley, she did it to herself. She wanted to learn how screwed up your belief systems were and how goofy and worthless and self-centered most philosophical thinking is in general. And certainly this new age, gobbledygook, feces-ridden, goop-spouting garbage that I am God and the loving of ignorant officials like that dummy llama has brought society. She wanted to make sure that she didn't get caught in the trap that you did. Until next time.